Okay, welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to take out. Uh, Basically, at this part of the story, now that the Yellow Scarves are defeated, Dong Zhuo is trying to take over the throne, whatever. This is, Sun Ce, one of the few times you see him in this game. It might be the only time he makes an appearance. I'm not 100% sure. But okay, so this is Dongzhuo's guard, Hua Xiong. And he is another General Li Su. And that's basically it. You fight Dongzhuo later on. And this is a pretty easy fight, so I didn't have to level up or anything. Cast the defensive spell. And he's pretty much gone. Bad news is Hua Xiong shows up after you beat him in this battle. He'll show up in the random battles, and that makes the random battles a bit more tough until you can recruit him on your side. But once he's on my side, he'll be a pretty good general. And a weird thing about this part of the game, after you get through this first gate, you'll begin to come across the more difficult generals. There's quite a few generals in the beginning area, but they don't join until... I don't think they will join until you beat this battle either. But at this point, why go back and get them? I don't really have any need. At this point, I'd rather recruit one of these really strong characters. As for this fight, not much to say, really. I'm using a strategy where I'm taking them down kind of evenly. That seems to work the best. As opposed to, sometimes I will just focus all my attacks on one character, get them down to 0, and then move on to the next. The only thing about that is, like I said, since the number of soldiers, or basically their HP, determines how much damage they do, once they're down to a certain HP, there's not really much point in attacking them any longer. Actually, later on in the game, when the beheading, you get the beheading skill, the enemies start using the beheading skill against you. That's the instant kill technique. Then, if a character has that, if an enemy character has that, it's best to focus all your attacks on them until they're gone. So that was pretty easy. Basically, if you've played any of the Dynasty Warriors games, Hulao Guan. Remember the Hulao Gate in those games? Guan is probably either Chinese or Japanese for gate. And I think they could have made things so much easier if they just translated some of these terms. Because in all the playthroughs, I mean, I played through this game several times, but as a kid, you don't know what Guan means. You don't know it means gate. I didn't know it meant gate until I played Dynasty Warriors, and taking out and securing the gates is a major part of the strategy of that game. You attack the whatever general's guarding that gate, you take them out, and then you've secured that gate. And basically that's the same thing you're doing in this game, only it's an RPG, so you travel from gate to gate, and once you've defeated it, then you've secured that area. Once you take down a castle, you've secured that castle. You can I don't think it's every castle, but certain castles in the game. You can invite Liu Bei, who is now king at this point, and then he'll enter that castle and basically can move him around. Once you've secured a new area, you can move him to that area. Oh, just got a pretty good character for free, actually. Can't beat that. So I'm gonna definitely switch him out. As a kid, it always kind of struck me strange that Liu Bei, obviously he's the best character in your party in the beginning, and he becomes king and never joins you back again. That was always kind of weird. Especially since I'm not sure about the exact history, but I know in the book, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, he travels around and participates in battles. So it's always kind of this is a sad part in the game when you lose him, because he's such a great character. I even like his character sprite because he's one of the few that uses the red and white color scheme. If you've noticed, there's kind of like each sprite has its own palette, and it's only like a palette of 3 colors. And I'm not an expert on why that is, but it probably has something to do with memory, keeping memory low. But if anybody ever watches this video and you actually know that you actually know why they use limited palette colors in these old Nintendo games, I'd be interested in knowing. So this is that annoying equipment system. You have to, when you get a new character, you have to trade all the items over to them. Makes a lot more sense than keeping them on a character you don't ever use again, that's for sure. So restructuring Hands-on, even though we just got him, he's already obsolete. I'm making sure before I give him the boot, but he had a short job to do and he did it. Chendeng, obviously with intelligence 157. Actually, I was confused before. Tactic point is basically your MP in the game. So it's called TP. And it's based on whoever your strategist is. Right now it's Mise. I think they have the same number of TP basically, so it doesn't matter. But it's not the TP number that determines whether a character, how good their magic is, because as you can see as I'm going through these characters, they don't have TP because they're not strategists. It's actually the intelligence number determines how good they are with tactics in this game. Or as I'm going to just call them from now on, magic. Kind of just making sure I have the best character before I boot him out. So I'm going to go back to home base. Visit the inn. Even though my amount of food was pretty good. Let's buy some to be sure. You want to get rid of a character in your party, you choose delete member. That's what DELMEM stands for, obviously. If you choose fire, that means you're kicking general out of your party, which there's really no reason to do. It's better to keep them kind of locked up, because that way they're not going to attack you later on. I don't think you really get enough extra money or experience to kind of justify the extra difficulty of having the generals out. I could be wrong. You might get it later on in the game. You might get a pretty good boost from it, but I haven't really paid attention to that in the past, so maybe I'll pay attention to it this time. But usually you get enough gold and experience just by fighting the regular enemies. Gullwing is pretty important, especially since we're now that we've defeated the Yellow Scarves, the three forts surrounding this home castle. Then now's the part in the game where you start traveling a lot further. You're going to be away from home base for longer periods. So Gullwing is definitely important. Does the same thing as the Wyvern Ring in Dragon Quest. It just returns you back to the last town you visited. And by town in this game, it's a castle like this one, which there's not as many as you'd think. I think there's regular towns. Yeah, it's been a while since I played this. But yeah, it lets you go back to the regular towns too, I think. But like these gate town forts, whatever, it won't take you back to these if you use it. So that's kind of what I meant. It just takes you back to the more important towns and cities. So this part of the game, interestingly enough, they give you a little castle to go into. It's totally optional, but it's worth your while to go into. I've been cutting out the battles since last episode, and I'm just gonna keep the entertaining ones in, the ones that are, or the ones, in other words, that, like this one, I'll leave the shorter ones in because they don't take up that much time actually, but I'll leave in the fights that include the generals because you get a little bit of variety that way. This is Fen Chao. I don't remember fighting against him, but with about 400 HP, that's pretty good. And once you've reached a certain part in the game, you'll be able to recruit generals like this. And I think you can recruit all the generals in this cave, if I'm not mistaken. But there are certain generals that will not allow you to recruit them until certain goals have been achieved, or certain bases and bosses have been beat. A lot of the times there's generals in the boss armies, and it's not until after you beat them that they'll join. But you can, the majority of generals you can recruit in this game, which is one of the fun things about it. They really set it aside from other RPGs of the era. Usually you just have a set group, and that's your group. I mean, think back to all the NES games. Dragon Quest IV is the only one, might be the only one on the NES that has enough characters that you can switch in and out of your main party. This one's kind of different because, I mean, geez, there might be 100 different generals in the game, but what makes it different is that they don't level up. So once they become obsolete, you just keep them locked up out of harm's way and accept a greater character. And once you start recruiting the Tiger Generals, there's 5 Tiger Generals. Once you start recruiting them, they level up, and suddenly it becomes not necessary to recruit generals anymore. Here we go, we captured Hua Xiong, and this is so annoying. A lot of times, in order to recruit a general, you need to have a $200 horse on your person. Li Zhu. And especially in this early game, $200 goes a long way. You know, you just don't have it to throw away on a horse, or steed as they call them. That really confused me as a kid. It's like, what the heck is a steed? You know? Especially when you're a kid. It just seems like such a strange word to use for a horse. Why not just have it say horse? You know? But it says steed. I mean, and you just buy it along with items and put it in your inventory. That's another thing that bothered me. Why not let you ride the steed if you can buy it? At least give it some other purpose besides just a barter item. You know, maybe the steed would live for a certain amount of time, and then while you were riding him, you didn't have to use rations. So that's another thing. It was in the episode that I was recording in Lost, of course. I was leveling up and ran out of food, and suddenly, you know, it takes 100 coins to buy more food, and if you don't have that, you have to run around and fight. So I was losing energy and fighting at the same time. Using the heal spell to keep going. So it's just mostly in this early game. It really gives you a handicap in the early game because money goes maybe money goes not a long way in this game, you could say, in the beginning, because, you know, it costs 200 gold for that Galwing, costs 200 gold for the steed, it costs 100 gold if you want to bring back a character who's fallen in battle. And that hasn't happened so far, but as I run out of my healing spells and items, I'm gonna start losing characters in this cave. At least one. Because they just keep hitting me general battles one after another. And I guess they do give you a bit more golden experience because I end up with a pretty good amount of gold. This is the fight that kills me. This Zhang Ji and Hua Xiong, they're both 2 very strong generals, and then you got 3 rebel force along with them. So at 30-40 damage every time they attack, it doesn't take long. That Rebel Force did 8 damage. This is a weird thing that I've noticed. The Rebel Force, even though I have a lot better armor, and I've leveled up quite a bit since the beginning of the game, they're doing more damage instead of less. Obviously, the enemies in this game, Rebel Force, Pirate Force, you know, the 4 main enemy types, they don't just stay the weak 100 HP Rebel Force or whatever. They go up in HP and strength, and they basically grow along with you. So even though it's the same type of enemy, they still remain the same amount of challenge as you progress. But it's just strange that even the Rebel Force in the beginning area, they still do about 5 damage. Which after the leveling up in the armor, you'd think they'd be doing less damage by now. Once you get them down to 60 HP or less, then they'll start doing maybe 3 or 2 damage, but it's just very strange. They do at least 5 when they have full health, and these guys are hitting for 8, 9 points. So it was a good thing I had some elixirs on my person, because these guys have been hitting hard, and I'm out of magic since I think the beginning of the fight. But these guys hit hard, and I've been just steady hitting them, and it's not doing much. This fight goes on for a while. This fight was more difficult than the last boss battle when I fought Hua Xiong at the gate. It wasn't this difficult. I don't know if it's just because my magic's depleted or what. Of course, the lower your HP goes, the less damage you're doing. And that draws out the fight longer. And even though I've been chipping away at their HP, they're still doing a very high amount of damage. He's still doing about 40 damage per hit. So I guess early game, you kind of have to get them below 100 HP in order to actually make a difference in the amount they hit for. Now they're down enough where they're not too much of a threat. But at 19 HP, Zhang Fei is not going to last too much longer. Oh, down to 5, so he's obviously not going to survive this battle. Chendang at 61. He'll probably survive. There you go. Oh, no. There he goes. Yep. So it's obvious I have to leave the cave at this point. It's not quite strong enough to tackle it yet, so... But as long as I keep going in my inventory, I can leave at any time. And did get a level up out of that. And it's good. Your characters don't have to be alive to level up. Zhang Fei leveled up along with the rest of them. And he wouldn't join my team because he's no traitor, but we'll get him in the end. So that's why it's so important. Once you start traveling out of this beginning area, keep a gull wing on you. You can even be in a cave, it'll take you to your home base. I would have got a game over if I didn't have it. So you need to buy the Resurrect for 100 coins. Buy a Gull Wing to replace it because you know we're going straight back there. That's the only way to bring back a fallen general in this game. A lot of games though I have a different way, whether it's a chapel or something similar to that. I know there was a chapel in Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest both, which are kind of the standards for RPGs, especially Japanese RPGs on the Nintendo. This one does not. The only way to bring back a fallen character is to resurrect. I don't know if it's a potion or what, just called resurrect. That's probably all the space they had. But I'm going crazy on the elixirs because if I'm going to survive longer in the cave, I'm going to need them to do the bulk of the healing. Then I can use the really limited magic points I have right now. I can use that for extra healing or for the defense spell, which would definitely come in handy. If you use a defense spell in those big general fights, you're gonna be saving HP as opposed to having it being chipped away and having to use your elixirs. So anyway, that's about it. I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna go to the inn and save, and then I'm gonna go right back to the cave. So check out the next installment where we'll go in the cave and